Recently, I did a live stream reacting to Cvit's Like a Dragon Gaiden video. It's a video that I've always had mixed feelings about, so it felt good to finally get my thoughts out there. But because of technical issues I was experiencing on stream, most of Cvit's video was completely muted for the audience. And since I didn't want to leave my reaction in this state, I decided I'd do a fully edited supercut, where I condense all of the major points I made during the stream and provide unmuted clips from Cvit's video. This is my first attempt at doing this sort of format, so if you have any feedback for how I handled it, then feel free to let me know. And as usual, there will be timestamps in the description in case you want to skip around. I think maybe it'd be worth giving my thoughts on Gaiden also, since it seems to be a bit of a contentious game. I actually really like Gaiden. I'd even go as far to say I'm a fan of the game, but I do think it has a lot of issues. I think the story, like most Yakuza games, is kind of a mess. I like the gameplay, but there's also some issues with it. I really like this game, but I also think there's a lot wrong with it. Cvit seems to be more on the negative end. He does not like the game. Yeah, he says one of the worst in the series, I think, or at least one of his least favorites. And I do remember agreeing with a lot of his points, but I do remember some that are kind of weak, and then there's things that just gets factually wrong. So I think it would be an interesting video, like some of the other ones I've covered, just sort of a mix of things I agree with, things I don't. And yeah, I thought it would be a good choice for this format. That introduction out of the way, I guess I could get started with the reaction. Let me just pull up the video.
It's hard to say for sure without seeing the story of Yakuza or Like a Dragon 8, which isn't out yet, but it really feels like this is a game that did not need to happen. So much was shown and told that just makes everyone involved look stupid and was perfectly fine left unsaid.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. The game should have been to make the Kiryu's appearance in 7 make more sense and give context for his role in 8. And not only does it feel so at odds with the stories of those games for multiple reasons, but yeah, it just leads to a lot of scenes where characters seem really stupid that only exist because Gaiden wrote them.
Like a Dragon Gaiden, they decided to take the part-time hero system from 7 and let it infect every aspect of this game. The florist has been replaced with Akame, who functions as the same character and plot device to get you all the information and spell out the plot and let the story move forward. RGG just really needs to abandon and stop writing this character archetype because they constantly have to make excuses and write around them. Even in games where the florist isn't around, the Gomi Jewel have to be burnt down so the entirety of the back half of the game can happen in Yakuza 7.
I mean, I don't know if Akame is as big of an issue as the florist or the Gomi Jewel. I feel those create a lot more issues with how much surveillance they have, and maybe there are some examples I'm not thinking of, but I just can't think of Akame having been as overpowered. Then again, it only comes up in the sub-story, so it's hard to say, but yeah, I just can't really think of any examples in the main story.
So with Akame, it thus introduces the Akame Network, which has you helping fuckos around town in order to gain the lucrative fucko points, which are one of 2 currencies used to upgrade Kiryu and the larger game-wide modifiers. The fucko missions appear as little exclamation points on your map, and these are all MMO tier busy work crap. Now some of you may be thinking, just ignore them if you don't like it, but you really can't, because they decided for Gaiden that it was going to have every iteration of the leveling systems from the entire series wrapped into one. And worst of all, the asking prices for both Akame points and money are ridiculously high and have too many upgrades. There is simply no way to get enough points for everything without grinding.
Yeah, like I said, it's a fine criticism of the leveling system. It's tedious for a completionist, basically, when you have to get all the abilities. But I think the problem I was as I was sort of framing it as something you have to do, you have to get all of them. I agree that the Akame Network thing is pretty tedious, and yeah, I agree with that, but the problem is that Cvit is kind of framing as you have to do all of them. You have to get every upgrade when you don't. For one thing, I don't think these games are nearly hard enough where you need all the upgrades. It's pretty manageable just to I don't know, just get some new moves, boost your stats a bit, and it's very manageable. Like, take issue with this like framing device sort of acting like you have to do all of this, when in reality you only need to like, not a few, you have to do like a handful of missions, get it up to level 10. I guess another thing he doesn't mention is that he's mostly focusing on like the ones you do on the street, not like the proper sub stories. But like the sub stories give you like a lot more Akame points, and they give you like thousands each. There's also like the completion list, which also gives you Akame points. So you can like literally just do like combat, exploration, mini games and still get some. And I don't think Cvit mentions that like any point of this video, only focusing on the actual Akame missions. It's just like framing them as like you have to do all of this, and like it's just like a framing device I feel like doesn't properly represent the actual issue.
It's great to see Kaito again and fun to have him and Kiryu interact, but they did my boy so dirty in this sub-story. He is completely incompetent, needlessly aggressive, comes off unnecessarily hostile, and is just a dick. He constantly fucks up and is made to look weaker, dumber, and less capable than Kiryu after just having the Kaito files showing that Kaito isn't just the meathead strong guy of the duo. This is Kuwami levels of out-of-character writing to make the extended cast look bad.
He's explaining how Kaido's acting out of character, but he isn't going through like specific examples of it. I'm kind of struggling to think of how he acts like out of character. Like, thing with him being more hostile towards Kiryu's because he thinks he's the guy he's searching for, or who has like been causing trouble. Yeah, maybe it's a bit convenient, not very fun to watch. I'm just trying to think of like, I was acting like completely incompetent and stupid. Like, can't say for sure Cvit is wrong. I guess I'd just say that he isn't really backing this up.
Gaiden is juggling two completely different groups of antagonists, so there is always a period of the game where one isn't relevant at all and can be completely forgotten about, resulting in the main villains and final boss of this game not having any bit of relevance or screen time for 7+ hours in my 20-hour playthrough that is mostly because of busy work and padding.
Okay, now he's just exaggerating. This does not take 20 hours to do all the busy work. Like, if we're just talking about like the required ones, it takes you like a few minutes to do the first like Akame Network requirement in the main story. You just like do like the Akame missions that are like closest to you. Later on, you do have to get to level 10, which depending on like how much you do the missions as you're walking through the street, but that one maybe like an hour at most. And you can do like the actual sub stories to speed it up, because those, like I said, give you thousands of points each. I find it kind of dishonest to frame as like 20 hours where like most of it is busy work and there's only like 7 hours of story. That's just not what it is. I agree that this is an issue, but I can't but feel like he's like really exaggerating it to insane extent. He's also saying that like there's like way more downtime in terms of not showing like Shishido or developing his character. Like, you get like bits throughout the game. I think you get like a pretty good understanding of him. Okay, so you get like the first chapter, like he attacks Hanawa, and then you get like his backstory chapter 2 with out of the castle. I think it might have been chapter 4, yeah, when creating attention so the Kijin clan notices. Like, you get like bits there. I mean, like ties up all like his like the characterization you get in like a really meaningful way. It doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere. It's building off of these pieces that are like gradually set up. Yeah, there's only like one chapter. Otherwise, I don't really get this criticism he's not in the game enough.
7, he shows up to help at the end as a no-name guy, basically saying, "My hands are tied, but the powers that be, aka the Daidoji, don't want Ryo Aoki to become prime minister and take over Japan, so I am helping in what limited ways I can." As much as I like those scenes, Kiryu arguably should have never come back after he walked away at the end of 6, but that's besides the point. What is said in 7 is fine and did not need to be expounded upon more than this.
I still don't think it's fine. Like, Kiryu's like a legend. Putting him next to like Yakuza, who might very well know him, is a terrible idea.
The game opens to Kiryu out in Kamurocho on a mission. The dude is blocks away from Stardust. What if Yuya saw him? What if Kazuki saw him? What if anyone who knows this guy who has spent most of his life here saw him just walking down the street that he is now? But they don't, because none of these characters matter anymore.
Okay, yeah, this is something Cvit just got wrong, that he's not in Kamurocho, he's in Roppongi, I think it's pronounced, but yeah, totally different area of Japan. I get if it's made like a throwaway line, but it's literally like the first shot of the game says like Roppongi Japan. Like this is very clearly not Kamurocho, yet he's criticizing it for like Kiryu's Kamurocho. What if the Stardust Boys saw him? It's like, yeah, there's still like the criticism of like it's stupid to send Kiryu out to do this stuff without disguise. But this specific criticism is about him being in Kamurocho, which just isn't true. So this part is just wrong.
Kiryu then goes on his new mission and talks to Hanawa saying, "Is it okay that I'm here? Won't these guys know me?" Only for Hanawa to say, "Nah, it's fine." And 2 steps from Kiryu later, the other agents go, "Well, if it isn't the legendary dragon of Dojima, Kazuma Kiryu, I guess you didn't die after all." This is the organization that is supposed to be rich and powerful enough to be running the country from the shadows. Metal Gear Solid's The Patriots level powerful, yet are constantly shown to be completely inept and put Kiryu into situations where he is constantly revealing the fact that this extremely iconic and identifiable guy is indeed still alive.
Okay, I guess it kind of went past that quickly, but yeah, Hanawa says definitively that none of these guys know who you are. Then he walks up for a bit and one of them knows who he is. Like, it isn't even like a bad reasoning for why this guy knows him. It's just Hanawa's lack of awareness that just adds to the Daidoji Incompetence. And yeah, I guess like putting him in situations where he reveals his identity, yeah, it's a pretty consistent issue with the Daidoji's depiction. Very frustrating. And yeah, it's even worse because like they blame him for revealing his identity when they're constantly putting him in situations where that risk is apparent. Like, it's just stupid.
I'm jumping over a lot of the plot I want to talk about, but it feels needed to do first in order to articulate one of my major frustrations with this game. Its pacing is so bad that it actively hurts potentially interesting characters like Shishido. Surano basically takes up all the screen time in hanging out with Kiryu that Shishido should have if he wanted to have any bit of impact once he reveals to be betraying you. There isn't anything about his story that's bad in my eyes. It's simply there's no time for any of it to marinate. It has so little time that a nameless, faceless mook has to come up to Shishido and talk to him like an alien so they can further drive home how he was a slave to Nishitani in both body and mind.
Okay, he doesn't just bring it up out of nowhere. It's in response to Shishido being like very like respectful of Nishitani. He's like, what? You respect him? Like Shishido's like, what, did I say something wrong? And then he talks about this. Like, he doesn't just like bring it up, it comes up naturally enough. It'd be weird for Shishido to talk this way about a guy who like mentally and physically tortured him. So like, yeah, it's like a fair like reaction. And just because he says like, yeah, Nishitani broke him real good, that doesn't feel substantive enough to say that this is like forced exposition. I don't know, it's just a weird point.
Which makes you wonder why the fuck would some random grunt talk to a commanding officer like this and not expect to be beaten with an inch of their life or actively killed where they stood. Imagine someone did this to another high-ranking character in the Omi. Imagine a dude went up to Majima saying, "Isn't it crazy you were tied to a pole and had your eye scooped out with a knife while your brother does the hit alone, which gets him locked up in jail for 25 years and made you play a fake persona this whole time?" That guy would be fucking murdered.
What? Why are you assuming Shishido's like a commanding officer? Like, it's like a higher rank than this guy. Surano is Shishido's boss, okay? He's just higher up. And this guy talks to Surano like pretty casually. Like, he's like kind of like friendly with him, which would imply that they're of like a similar rank. I just don't know why you're assuming that Shishido's a higher rank than this random guy. We're given no indication that this is the case.
The only reason that doesn't happen to Sagawa, because this would mean Majima broke his agreement, which he is trying to use in the attempt to get back into the clan. But here, Shishido has no real reason not to just kill this guy who is beneath him, other than this dude needs to be here to attempt to stab Watase in 7.
Like I said, there's no indication that Shishido's a higher ranking member than this guy, but also, like, okay, even if we were to say this was how it was, you can't just, like, kill him without any repercussions, and he wants to, like, he doesn't want to bring, like, suspicion to himself or Surano before the disillusion. Even if this was, like, a weird thing to say to a higher-up, why would you think you want to cause attention and, like, kill this guy? maybe like get like angry at him, but like I said, we don't even know if Shishido's is higher up. This is just a complete assumption.
This game has multiple lore dumps and plot synopsises like this for Yakuza 7 because that's happening parallel to this game and expects you to know what's happening for any of Gaiden's final chapter to have stakes or context. Shishido gets a second lore dump after he kills Nishitani, explaining to Kiryu why it was totally okay we killed that guy. Because this game, without its padding, is so short, they don't have time to show you anything and instead constantly have to tell you all the tragic things that happen to these characters off screen, or tell you just how evil the other characters are because they don't do anything in the game to actually warrant these emotions towards them.
I figure out how to say this. Like, a lot of the games have like exposition dumps in order to like develop characters and stuff, and admittedly there is like a lot of them in Gaiden in order to like flesh out these characters, but feels like they're expressed pretty naturally. We sometimes get information like not through like direct exposition. Like, you learn a decent amount of Shishido and how he feels about Kiryu from like his opening, their confrontation in the first chapter, and you can also see how like, yeah, sort of like a closer bond with the Watase family than Surino does, which is sort of like a subtle bit of foreshadowing for the fact that they're working to betray them. Like, there's like bits there. This isn't just like all exposition, even if there's a lot of it, but even though that's like the main thing, I don't see how that's necessarily a bad thing. But it's also worth considering that Gaiden is like much shorter than most Yakuza games. These individual scenes are a lot more important when it comes to like the greater whole of his character. So I think that even if there's just like a couple scenes of exposition couple that aren't develop his character, I don't see how that's a problem. But like, a lot of this exposition comes up pretty like naturally. Shishido reveals his backstory to show like just how hard he had it and why he sees Kiryu's position as something so incredible that he would do anything to achieve, which is why he doesn't understand why Kiryu would run away from it, take on this different identity, justifying killing Nishitani. Like, they just tricked Kiryu, and like, he's very mad. They want to give him a reason for why this is justified. Like yeah, this like, it's exposition, but it's like justified in these cases. You just frame it as like an inherently negative thing.
Or tell you just how evil the other characters are because they don't do anything in the game to actually warrant these emotions towards them. Nishitani is the biggest waste in this game. He might be the most undercooked villain in the entire series. Finally, someone to rival Munakata from Yakuza 4.
He's a simple character, if that's what you mean, but we get like decent understanding of like his personality, and there's like a reason for why he's like important to the plot of the game. I mean, he's like simple. I wouldn't call him like an amazing villain, but like, he serves his role perfectly well. I don't see what the issue with him is.
This guy has no character of his own and entirely relies on your past attachment to characters and events from previous better games.
I feel like even people who like don't like him would say that isn't true. You can say like it's a weak or an underdeveloped character, but he has a character. Like, it's not debatable. Yeah, there's the connection, but Nishitani the Third is not like the same character. Other than the most surface level, like, oh, they're horny and they use knives. Like, if I remember, like, the original isn't like the most sadistic character. Well, it's like a pretty prominent part of Nishitani the Third's character. Like, not only having this coliseum where people fight to the death, but just how terribly he treated Shishido. The description of his torture of some Yakuza thug he punished. He's like a very like sadistic person. He's also very like egocentric, thinks very highly of himself. Like, so I don't remember the original Nishitani too well. Maybe he could be like similar in these certain ways, but like, this guy has a character. I don't know why he's acting like there's nothing to him.
Nishitani is the endpoint for the series' obsession with Yakuza 0 callbacks and fan service masturbation. His character is that he has the same name as a guy from the most popular game in the series, and is also apparently a part of the Jingwu Mafia, which is mentioned in a single line for people to point at the screen and then never comes up again. Both of these facets of his character don't actually come up in the game in a meaningful way.
I guess like his connection to the first, like, yeah, there's similarities, but it isn't that important. Yeah, I guess I could agree. His Jingwon connection, I guess that one's also not that important. Shishido mentions it to like Kiryu, I guess, sort of like hype him up, like say like why Nishitani would especially like want to kill him, but yeah, otherwise it doesn't come up that much. I agree, like, these connections to other games aren't necessary. I don't see how that makes him a worse character. Like, he's a perfect perfectly fine character.
The first time you see Nishitani actually do anything, you beat him from pillar to post so bad he is left unconscious in front of all of his men in the middle of his stupid boat castle utopia, something that for another character would be a massive point of revenge. They feel like they need to reclaim their honor or something, but that doesn't happen because this character has no bearing on the plot and has no importance and doesn't fucking matter.
But he does want revenge on Kiryu. Like, don't they say, like, once he gets back that, like, the Kijin clan's after him? The reason why he doesn't leave the castle immediately is that, like, I think it's safe to assume that, like, he values it a lot, and he isn't, like, Yusuno even says, like, the Kijin clan doesn't have their own turf, like the current Kijin clan. They're kind of a new crew, so I guess that makes more sense why they would value the ship. It's like, they're like main source of power, basically.
You could completely erase him from this game and nothing changes. Most of his screen time is spent sitting in a chair that everyone looks up to from a mile away, and the few times the camera zooms in on him grabbing his dick. I guess it really is just the case that if a guy gives a good enough or memorable enough performance, people will find them a good character despite having no bearing on the plot.
He's the leader of the clan that, like, is like the biggest opposition to the disillusion. Okay, you can find that not interesting, fine, but he's important to the plot. Like, there's like valid criticisms being mentioned here, but the conclusion he's coming to is bizarre.
He has such little screen time and importance that the other character that is just as irrelevant as him has to explain why this guy is actually super duper important after you already killed him in his dramatic set piece boss fight.
You get like plenty, just like seeing like how like sadistic he is, his lack of regard for human life, that cares like so much about his position and would see the dissolution as a threat. There's like underbaked aspects I agree with, the Jingwan or his connection to original Nishitani. There's like plenty there to explain like why he's a threat. Do we need more than just saying like he's a leader of one of the more like powerful groups in the Omi? Like I don't see why this isn't enough.
Now we can circle back to the Daidoji, which, like I started talking about earlier, might be the most incompetent secret organization to run a large part of the world behind the scenes that I've ever witnessed, and I can't tell if parts of it are intentional or not. Hanawa is taken by Surano and Shishido, to which the rest of the Daidoji tell Kiryu to forget about him. He's as good as dead. Kiryu is disgusted by this fatherless behavior, beats up everybody at the Daidoji base, and goes out to save him. How this doesn't get all of the kids at the orphanage killed, I don't know, but the game doesn't dwell on it, so neither will I.
Well, yeah, I guess it doesn't make sense that they kind of like forgive him once he gets back, when they like just threatened the orphans before he left.
They even reveal that the fine print of the agreement is that it's on Kiryu not to reveal himself. So why is he even being sent on missions then? Because of this violation of their agreement, Kiryu has to get rid of all the evidence of him being alive, starting with killing Surano in the interrogation room, then moving on to Shishido, then everyone else in the Watase family. What about the other dudes on the roof that have the picture of you on their smartphone, that are a part of the Seiryu clan, who were told in a text message that you work for the Daidoji? What about the agents in the room that just heard Brother Conflict call you Kiryu? What about all the other dudes at the docks who recognized you that didn't get super omega murdered that the game made a point to go, he got what's coming to him?
No, the Daidoji know he's Kiryu. I don't think that's like I think that's like more well known around the Daidoji. That seems to be consistent. Hanawa inexplicably thinks that the people at the shipyard don't know who he is, but like I don't know why you're assuming like these like people in the room aren't allowed to know.
As they close their eyes awaiting their fate, his gun clicks, revealing that all the other agents' guns were actually empty this whole time. Brother Conflict wheels himself in and says that the boys passed his fortune cookie test of loyalty. Surano then walks in and drops a briefcase full of 5 billion yen in money and assets, which is what the Daidoji set the price of Kiryu's life at. So now Watase can rent Kiryu like he is a VHS from Blockbuster for his birthday party. Brother Conflict then reveals that if Hanawa did kill Kiryu, then they would have had to still kill Surano. So good job, bro. You didn't fuck everything up. This also means that his gun was actually loaded and could have very easily killed Kiryu if he wanted to.
I think this is like probably like the worst scene in the game. Like these games are normally good at balancing tones, but the way it just goes back and forth between them is like extremely jarring. But it also just like adds to the Daidoji incompetence, where they're okay, so suddenly they're fine with just being paid off to like hire Kiryu, even though they're worried about knowing Kiryu's identity. Apparently they can just get paid off and they don't care anymore. The fact that like they actually loaded Hanawa's gun, they would risk like killing Kiryu, meaning that the deal wouldn't even work. It's just so stupid. Yeah, it's like, I think it's the worst scene in the game.
After we rest at Akame's and spend some time with the Fucko Network, we meet with Suverno back at the castle. Suverno then gives us a half Yakuza 7 plot synopsis by explaining Daigo and Watase's plan, then talks about the topic at hand, which is the fact that in order for the dissolution plan to work, Nishitani needs to be out of the picture. Otherwise, the Omi will reform around him because he's that much of a big deal, apparently. Of course, these two chuckle fucks decide that it would be a good idea to talk about this and how they were going to get rid of Nishitani within earshot and direct line of sight of Nishitani. Why would they do this? Are they stupid?
They're not in earshot. Like, the only reason they can hear each other is because the Kijin guy brought over the walkie-talkie. Like, probably not a good idea for Suno to bring Kiryu here, but this idea that, like, he's acting like this is, like, the problem with this scene, and not that Suno decided that, like, he had to have this meeting here with Kiryu.
The answer is apparently yes, because Suverno starts shitting his pants when Nishitani spots them and calls them up to his throne via a waiter, which the pool is filled with, and any of them could have easily overheard this conversation at any point.
When they're actually talking, there's, like, no one right next to them. Like, the pool isn't even that, like, crowded. There's, like, a couple people, but they're, like, a good distance from them. I don't think we even see any, like, Kijin guys until the one delivering the walkie-talkie comes up, and that's, like, either they're not even there at this point, or they're just not close enough. Like, he's so close to, like, bring up, like, a genuine issue with this scene, but he's just completely off.
I guess to this game's credit, up until this point, I was wondering when Suverno was going to betray me or die, because neither of these two characters are in Yakuza 7. But this just brings me back to the point that if this was supposed to be some big dramatic reveal, then why wasn't Shishido the character we spent most of the game palling around with when we aren't with Hanawa? Instead, we get a 15-minute cutscene, I went back and timed it, where Shishido and then Nishitani explain why they are betraying you by repeating the same shit multiple times.
Okay, so you get Shishido's explanation. Like, the initial betrayal, they explain Shishido's plan, like why Shishido sided with Nishitani, basically. Yeah, he just explains, like, his anger for being, like, betrayed by Watase. He's especially angry because of, like, the things he has to do, like, maintain, like, Watase's, like, clean image. But yeah, the point is, they're not really repeating themselves. There's, like, a lot of information. Like, yeah, like, it's long. Like, you can criticize aspects of it you want to, but this is just not true.
This cutscene feels like it goes on forever, and then makes me wonder why Shishido, a man who has every reason to hate Nishitani, and does, as his only character trait for most of this game is, I hate Nishitani, I want him dead, but instead he decides that he's gonna have this elaborate plan where he pretends to stab him with a prop knife that shoots out fake blood that is only viewable for the player, not even Kiryu, then has paramedics off screen apparently that can immediately save him because he's not even dead for longer than 2 seconds before the game decides to show us that, hey, this guy is still alive, he's gonna clearly show up later.
Okay, I guess, okay, main thing. Saying that, like, his only trait throughout, like, the last few chapters is that he hates Nishitani and wants him dead. No, if anything, the game shows him as, like, unusually, like, respectful towards Nishitani despite what he put him through. I don't see how this, like, his defining trait, where even, like, where he says, like, Nishitani got off too easy with how he died. It's, like, the only thing we get, and, like, most of it he's, like, acting respectful towards him. I also just find that bizarre, like, his only trait when how much, like, he values, like, the Yakuza and, like, how it's given him, like, a better life than the hell he went through, and why he wants to keep this life rather than letting the Yakuza die. That's, like, very clearly, like, the core thing with his character. And even before the reveal, okay, he doesn't want the dissolution to happen. He's, like, reverence for the Yakuza and, like, the position Kiryu was once in. That's, like, very prevalent to his character.
So this all begs the question of, why is he teaming up with Nishitani then? You know what, it's fine. Now he suddenly goes from a character who hates Nishitani for all the horrible things he has done to him and other members of the clan, to out of nowhere wanting to prevent the clan from dissolving and teaming up with his rapist and slave owner to do so. I seriously do not understand why he wouldn't just kill Nishitani and keep going on with his plan as it is now.
They explain this, like, the Kijin clan, like the game establishes, is, like, pretty powerful. They're, like, the most significant threat to the Omi's dissolution. Like, the way Shishido sees it, this is, like, the best option he has as, like, possibly, like, stopping this. Even if we get indications that he doesn't like Nishitani, the scene after, like, Fake kills him, and the ending scene where he seems, like, horrified just at the idea of having to, like, deal with him again, basically, with, like, the Daidoji. There's indications that Shishido doesn't like him, but that he sees him as like necessary for like his goal of preventing the Yakuza from dying. Like, it's very clear.
He clearly doesn't need the manpower, as he is shown to be strong enough to take on every major character from the series at the same time, like he's somebody's DeviantArt OC. He's Vegeta's long-lost brother. He's Steel the Hedgehog. He's just as powerful, if not more, than everybody else, and he's way cooler and everybody loves him.
The whole point of like him showing up like at the Omi and like rallying up the guys, it's like a desperate last stand. Like, his plan A was to get Nishitani and the Kijin's help to stop the dissolution, but now that didn't work. He's desperate, he's trying to rally them up, and he's giving it all to fight these guys who are trying to bring the dissolution. Is saying like, oh, he fought them all single-handedly. They're basically just not able to like overpower him for like a brief moment. That's not proof like he could take them all himself.
This game is so predictable, obvious, and creatively bankrupt with what it wants to do and say that I was constantly anticipating and even saying exactly what was going to happen down to the dialogue, but then they can't even get this right because they need to have that subversion. So they make someone who doesn't have any reason to stop you other than he suddenly wants to in this exact cutscene at the 19th hour.
Okay, this doesn't even feel like the point he's making. The point is that it doesn't make sense he would team up with Nishitani. Now it doesn't make sense that he would want to stop you. When he just said like he could just carry through with this plan without helping Nishitani, he's just, I really don't think he understood Shishido's character, like thinking that all of this is just completely out of left field when it was being set up from like his fight with Kiryu. We're getting like bits of information, like who he is, the respect he has for Kiryu, and like his position. This is like totally consistent with his character. I have no idea what he's talking about.
The series has such a hard-on for last-minute twists, misdirections, and swerves that it often goes completely off the rails to do so. It's hard not to be predictable after having 17 original story entries, but being predictable doesn't have to be a bad thing. In my opinion, being predictable to the viewer is only bad when it feels like I am seeing the same thing again without any interesting deviations or flair. Yakuza 2, without reinventing the wheel, took the same outline and explored other facets of the themes set up in 1. You don't need the last-minute twists or reveal of some grand conspiracy of what's really going on.
There's so much of that in Yakuza 2, like the last minute reveals, like was actually happening. Like there's like all like the Jingwon reveals and like Takashima's betrayal. Okay, maybe not directly with Kiryu and Ryuji, but it's like very relevant. I mean, it's basically reason why they're bleeding out to death in this fight.
The whole reason that Kiryu is even present at the dissolution at the end of Yakuza 7 is so he can block this whack-ass mix-up. And then Gaiden is like, what if Watase was actually stabbed 3 hours earlier? Which also doubles as a fake out for Surino being murdered at the end, because obviously this character isn't going to show up later. Why is Kiryu so fucking bad at his job, man? Why do they write him like this?
Isn't the point that Watase was closer and that they kind of just got surprised? I don't... Okay, so yeah, they already showed, okay, like, Kiryu just knocked Shishido into the pit. Nishitani is seemingly down and only, like, gets up to, like, attack Surino. So he just, like, basically, like, plays dead and catches him off guard. Now that I'm done with Cvit's Gaiden review, I thought that I'd include a bonus section to cover some of Cvit's other Yakuza takes. Because while there was some I agreed with, there was also some that I found kind of terrible, and I ended up having a lot to say about them. This section will contain spoilers for both Infinite Wealth and Lost Judgment.
Welcome to my review of the newly released Like a Dragon Gaiden, the game meant to bridge the gap between Yakuza 7 and 8, explaining the how and why Kiryu is a main character in that game, an apology for people who got filtered by the end of Yakuza 6 and did not realize how amazing it was.
I know that this stream is about Gaiden, this might seem a bit petty, but I do want to talk a bit for why I hate the ending of Yakuza 6 as much as I do. I think it's a perfect example of the writers wanting a specific emotional payoff, but they're not willing to do the legwork to really have it make sense within their narrative. For one thing, it is incredibly contrived, the setup to this ending. It makes Iwami seem somewhat incompetent, like the fact that he had Kiryu and Nagumo like right where he wanted them and everything was going his way. But then like suddenly it's completely undermined once the rest of the Hirose family shows up. Like all it takes is just a couple guys to sneak up, help Haruka, and just completely undo everything. Which it doesn't make sense why I wouldn't anticipate that, because like he knows knows that there's more of the Hirose family, and that's weird that there's only 2 of them. So he should have been able to like anticipate something like this, but no, he kind of, Haruka and Haruto end up getting saved anyway. But then you have the actual scene of Sugai shooting Kiryu, which has a lot of issues on its own. Like, first off, no one checks the villains for firearms, a very tired trope in this series at this point. Like, even if the Hirose boys, they didn't like expect it, Kiryu should have warned them. Like, he's experienced this way too much just to be like just as oblivious as they are. And some of it is slowed down, but you have like a good like 10 seconds within the context of the story where Sugai is shooting at Haruka, Yuta's running up to save her, Kiryu is off screen running up to save her also. But then, like, when you really think about it, Takashira and Matsunaga, I think that's their names, the other 2 Hirose boys, they're kind of just standing there doing nothing off screen. Like, they're doing the thing where if these characters aren't on screen, the game acts like they don't exist, because they were like just as close as like Yuta and Kiryu were to Haruka, so they could easily be able to like stop Sugai from shooting Kiryu multiple times. But instead they only like intervene after he shoots Kiryu multiple times and the damage is already done. It's like completely like lazy, I don't know, storytelling, choreography, just ignoring details also this scene can play out in a specific way. Then you have the logistics of Kiryu being taken to the hospital. Admittedly, this one is a bit more unclear, but I just find it so bizarre. Like, okay, this relies on Kiryu being taken to the hospital, why no one else, like, knows about it, no one other than Date. But, like, why wouldn't they know that Kiryu is still alive or, like, in life support? They would have to, like, keep this secret for long enough until Kiryu has a meeting with, the Daidoji guy. But that would only make sense if Kiryu went into it knowing about the Daidoji, which you would have no reason to. Like, we get no indication that this was part of his plan. It wouldn't make sense if that was the case. But yeah, there's just this really questionable thing of how was Kiryu moved to the hospital without anyone knowing that he's still alive? Like, that part's just really questionable. But then it's just like the big thing is that it completely undermines the character arc Kiryu is going on through the entire game. Like, I have my issues with like how he's characterized in certain scenes. I think the game makes him a bit too stupid sometimes, but they're actually going for like a decent arc where he realizes, hey, running away from the people I love in this like short-sighted attempt at saving them only leads to things getting worse. Not only did it lead to my daughter getting hit by a car and almost dying, and like getting involved in this whole situation with these ruthless criminal organizations, but like you see like Yuta's character, you see him make the same type of mistake. He's about to sacrifice himself for Haruka and Haruto, and Kiryu tells him why this is wrong, like criticizes him for sacrificing himself and abandoning the people he loves. That it seems like they're actually like having Kiryu outright acknowledge that this is wrong and he's grown past it. Like, they sort of flanderize that trait a bit at the beginning, like make it so he just runs away from his problems, ignoring the context of all the times he ran away in those previous games. But at least there was like an arc here where you see him realize the consequences of these choices and actually grow from it. But then the ending, it's like, nah, I'll fake my death, run away from my family again. It's for the best. It's just completely at odds with like his arc throughout the game. Like, it makes no sense that he would do this. And actually no, it's even worse because the letter to Daigo, he actually acknowledges like these mistakes of his, how he abandoned the people he loved, made things harder for them. Okay, that's like an even more explicit example of, I realize what I did is wrong, I'm sorry. And then he proceeds to do it again by faking his death. Like, it's so, I don't know why Yakuza 6 fans think that ending is good when it's completely at odds with Yakuza 6. Like, it's just completely ruins the arc he was going on throughout the game. It's just terrible, honestly. It's like one of the worst endings in any of the games. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Yakuza 6's ending. So I'd explain why I think it's really silly to call it amazing. Like, it is really bad.
So at the end of Yakuza 6, the whole times are changing, we can't go on the adventures we used to, and Kiryu, you can't just keep solving all of your problems by going somewhere and beating up a bunch of dudes themes come to a crescendo as Kiryu, for all intents and purposes, must die so his family can live in peace.
Even the thing about like, oh yeah, it's so his family can live in peace, even if this didn't feel as odds with his arc, the reasoning is just kind of flimsy. Like, you've gone up against people who say like, even if you die, we'll still go after Haruka. Like, feels like after that, you should especially be realizing that like, just because I give up my life, they still might be in danger. Maybe if you arrange something with the Daidoji, like making sure they keep them safe rather than just faking his death, like maybe that would be better. It's like, we're supposed to be like, oh, like he's doing the thing that'll make them safe. It feels like it's ignoring like how ruthless the villains have been shown to be. Make it hard to believe that this is a good decision.
You don't need the last minute twists or reveal of some grand conspiracy of what's really going on. That's how you get shit like the end of Lost Judgment, which gets lost so far up its own ass in government conspiracies that it makes the main character's stance on the matter feel like he is being stupid and ignoring the bigger picture, with his only retort being, "But Sawa Sensei though," when anyone could and does easily pick apart his argument.
I don't get what is coming from that he's like ignoring all like the nuance and context of the conversation. He still thinks that like it doesn't justify murder or letting this character's death make it so that no one will find the truth and they won't get justice. So yeah, it's more simple. He doesn't have to go on a long monologue to explain it like Kuwana does, but like that doesn't make it less valid. Like, yeah, find it less interesting, that's fine, but then you're saying he's stupid, he's only ignoring the context of the situation. It's just a bizarre misunderstanding of the conflict. I'm like, this isn't even to invalidate like Kuwana's perspective. I think there's a lot of good points he makes. But yeah, this is just such a misrepresentation of the main moral conflict in Lost Judgment. People pointed out he's wrong. The main thing I can think of is Kuwana saying like how he doesn't have like any other reason to oppose him. And like, okay, yeah, the game is aware this is his main point of like arguing against them, but like it's also because it's one that they can't really refute like a moral level, basically. I think it's worth considering that like Yagami does like sympathize with some of these people, wants them to see the error of their ways. So he's focusing on like the one like argument that they can't really refute, and one that's like very consistent with his characterization, not liking people basically getting killed and not getting justice, getting used for some larger scheme. Like, yeah, it's like simpler than Kuwana's position, but it's also not wrong. It just feels like bizarre oversimplification of like a pretty interesting moral dilemma.
For a game all about how the Watase family acquired Kiryu for the disillusion, and then having 8 be all about the second disillusion, it feels pointless that none of the Watase family characters are relevant at all.
Yeah, that's just one of my many issues with Infinite Wealth, that they like don't really bring up Watase, or at least like what he's up to, which is like pretty important considering like not his role in the disillusion and like how helpful he could be for bringing it back, but just like how he feels about any of this. Like it's weird.
Flash forward to Infinite Wealth, and not only is Kiryu constantly doing things that would get the Daidoji on his ass while wondering if this is okay, only for Date to say, fuck him, what are they gonna do, kill me? He then gets blasted on national TV, seen and streamed by hundreds of TikTokers outside of Tojo HQ, and all of this is somehow fine only until you do the optional, completely missable side content of the last life link for Kiryu, where some new discount Morinaga from the Daidoji beat up Date and then threaten to kill everyone Kiryu cares about, making him re-up his bargain for the second time, only to then turn around and talk to discount Morinaga from the Daidoji in a limo to basically say, "We were originally super mad at you, but then we read Hanawa's notes and saw just how much the power of friendship you guys exemplified, so it's totally cool, bro. You're doing us a favor in the end," back in the main story.
Yeah, like the Daidoji are already such like a schizophrenic plot point. The existence of this life link, it just makes them more confusing. Like how they would only act now and then they reestablish the deal, but then they say like, "Nah, you're good." So weird.
The structuring of Kiryu's story in the second half of Infinite Wealth is so weird and sloppy because so much of it is time and chapter gated, so massive parts of it are at odds with itself and make no sense. Like, for example, you get the cool scene where Kiryu slicks back his hair and puts on the old fit, only to immediately take control of Ichiban and can easily spend another 10 hours before you play as Kiryu. Why would you not save this scene until you beat Ichiban's segment and then cut to Kiryu? This is basic writing 101 structure bullshit. How are we fucking this up?
I mean, I guess it gives that a bit less weight, but that Kind of just seems like such a small thing. I don't know if there's like way bigger issues. I don't know if I point this out as like a fundamental structural issue when I'd probably point out like the really like rushed pacing in general with like developing his arc, but also the whole plot with the Seiryu and Tadara. Yeah, kind of a weird thing to focus on, but alright.
Then for one final fuck you to you the viewer, your intelligence, and the end of Yakuza 6, and somehow Gaiden, you see in the post-credit scene that Kiryu is getting chemo for his cancer, so he is somehow not gonna die now, and when the doctor asks him for his name, he gets to say Kiryu Kazuma, unlocking you the achievement The Man Who Reclaimed His Name. Not showing or explaining how or why this happened, you would think with the fact that these two games have been nothing but explaining things that did not need to be shown for idiots who obsess over every granular detail, that this would be something explained, especially considering this has been the focal point of Kiryu's character for 3 fucking games now.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Just the complete lack of explanation for why Kiryu is able to just see Haruka again, use his name again, just very unsatisfying.
Like a Dragon 8 has the most rushed and undeserved ending in the entire series, where a decent chunk of the cast just does not show up for the final scene. You have to be told what they're doing by other characters because they get no screen time, ending off the main cast on a joke continuing the status quo, like this is some bullshit shitty 2000s harem anime. The last few chapters of the game genuinely feel incomplete, like there is massive parts of it that had to be cut because this game was so front-loaded.
Okay, yeah, just let that play, because yeah, it's pretty much spot on. Like, it's actually crazy how bad Infinite Wealth's ending was. Like, the story up until that point, I already think was a mess, but it's crazy just how much damage it does, like, in like a couple hours. I think it might be the worst ending of the games. Like, the more I think about it, just does so much damage. There's endings I hate more, like 6, but Infinite Wealth is just like way more broken. It's the worst ending, I think. But anyways, that's about all I have to say about Cvit's review. Not the worst Yakuza video I've seen, but still suffers from a lot of inaccuracies and weak arguments. He may have gotten a lot right when it comes to his issues with Gaiden, but he also got a lot wrong. And his takes when it comes to other Yakuza games are just as hit or miss. But now that I'm done with this response, I just want to thank everyone for watching. This was a bit different than my previous videos, but I hope that you enjoyed it regardless. And once again, if you have any feedback for how I handled this format, then feel free to let me know. But anyways, that's about it. Thanks for watching.